morning sun, a gentle caress on Willow Creek, painted the dew-kissed leaves in hues of emerald and gold. Daniel inhaled deeply, the crisp air carrying the familiar scent of petunias and freshly cut grass. It was a ritual, this quiet moment before the day truly began. He stood on his porch, a steaming mug of dark roast coffee warming his hands, his gaze drifting over his small, meticulously tended garden. Sparrows chirped a cheerful melody from the ancient oak that shaded his modest home, a comforting counterpoint to the distant hum of the awakening neighborhood. This small, close-knit community was his sanctuary, a place where neighbors knew each other's names, shared garden produce, and greeted each other with genuine smiles. Daniel, the director of the Consumer Protection Bureau, a man dedicated to upholding fairness and protecting the vulnerable, found solace in this simple, predictable rhythm of life. He especially appreciated the quirky presence of his next-door neighbor, Karen. Even the name conjured an image, a whirlwind of brightly colored fabrics, oversized costume jewelry, and a voice that could shatter glass at 50 paces. She was, to put it mildly, eccentric. Yet, beneath the theatrical flair and the sometimes overwhelming personality, Daniel had always sensed a core of genuine kindness. He swirled his coffee, a faint smile playing on his lips as he remembered the time his wife, Sarah, had been rushed to the hospital. It was Karen, with her flamboyant floral dress and a heart surprisingly larger than her towering beehive hairdo, who had stepped in without hesitation, taking care of their young daughter, Emily, for the entire day. He'd returned home exhausted to find Emily happily playing, her face smeared with what he hoped was chocolate. He'd been profoundly grateful. Lately, though, there had been a subtle shift in Karen, a guardedness he hadn't seen before. Their usual chats across the fence felt rushed, her boisterous laughter a little forced. This morning, however, any thoughts of Karen's recent odd behavior were instantly obliterated. As Daniel stepped off the porch, intending to give his prized rose bushes a quick watering, he froze. His eyes widened, disbelief warring with a surge of bewildered anger. His yard, it was gone. The tranquil space he knew and cherished had vanished, replaced by a scene of utter chaos. Instead of lush green lawn and vibrant flower beds, a garish, overcrowded marketplace sprawled before him. Shabby stalls, cobbled together from mismatched materials, were crammed into every available inch. Brightly colored banners advertising authentic cosmetics and unbelievable prices flapped aggressively. The air, normally filled with birdsong, throbbed with the deafening cacophony of hawkers' cries, competing with tinny, distorted pop music. The smell of strong, cloyingly sweet perfume mixed with a pungent chemical odor. He blinked, wondering if he was still dreaming. This couldn't be real. His quiet suburban yard transformed into a flea market? A particularly bad flea market. His coffee cup slipped, hot liquid sloshing over his hand, a minor discomfort that barely registered amidst the overwhelming sense of disorientation and the rapidly building question. What had Karen done? The initial shock morphed into a focused fury. Karen. The name echoed in Daniel's mind, a silent accusation. He took a determined step forward, his gaze sweeping across the chaotic scene, trying to pinpoint the epicenter of this bizarre transformation. It didn't take long. Even amidst the throng of bargain hunters and the garish displays, Karen was unmistakable. Before heading directly towards her, though, Daniel's instincts kicked in. He needed to assess the situation, gather some evidence. He veered towards the nearest stall, a precarious structure overflowing with bottles and jars claiming to be high-end cosmetics. A young woman, barely out of her teens, stood behind the counter, nervously chewing on her gum. Her eyes darted around, avoiding direct eye contact. Good morning, she chirped, the forced cheerfulness in her voice betraying her anxiety. Looking for something special? Best prices in town, guaranteed. Daniel picked up a bottle, its label proclaiming it to be Chanel number 5 inches. The font was subtly off, the glass felt cheap, and the liquid inside shimmered with an unsettling, oily sheen. This is amateur hour, he thought, his professional eye instantly recognizing the telltale signs of a counterfeit. This, Chanel number 5? He asked, raising an eyebrow. Is it authentic? The girl's smile faltered. Of course. Imported, top quality. She wished Karen would appear. This man was making her nervous. Imported from where? Daniel pressed, his voice calm but firm, the voice he used in official interrogations. She hesitated, glancing around. Where is she? She needed Karen to handle this. France? Yes, France. Directly from the, factory, she stammered. Daniel suppressed a sigh. He placed the bottle back down. It was worse than he imagined. He wasn't just dealing with a neighborhood nuisance. This was a full-blown operation peddling potentially dangerous fakes. Across the way, Karen was in her element. Perched on a rickety platform, she resembled a flamboyant, slightly deranged ringmaster. Her dress, a riot of clashing colors and patterns, seemed to vibrate with energy. Her hat, a towering concoction of plastic fruit and feathers, defied gravity. She waved her arms theatrically, her voice amplified by a crackling microphone booming across the yard. Step right up, ladies and gentlemen. Don't miss this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Authentic cosmetics, designer perfumes, all at prices you won't believe. They're buying it, she thought, a smug smile playing on her lips, hook, line, and sinker. These people are so desperate for a bargain, they'll believe anything. Daniel felt a surge of anger. He started towards her, the crowd parting before him, their eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Karen!" he called out, his voice cutting through the noise like a knife. What in God's name is going on here? Karen's performance stuttered. Her eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in annoyance as she recognized him. The smile she plastered on her face was as fake as the products she was peddling. "Daniel, darling, what a pleasant surprise. Are you here to do some shopping? I have a special discount just for you, my dear neighbor." "Discount," Daniel repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. "Karen, this is my yard. Who gave you permission to turn it into this?" He gestured broadly, encompassing the entire chaotic scene. Karen waved her hand dismissively, a gesture that managed to be both condescending and frantic. "Oh, details. I rented the space, perfectly legal. If you want to buy something, fabulous. If not, please don't disrupt my business." "Rented?" "From whom?" Daniel demanded, his voice rising. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, a silent audience to this increasingly surreal confrontation. Karen's smile tightened. "Think fast, Karen, think fast," she told herself. This was not going according to plan. "Well, must have been the previous owner then. You probably just didn't know." "Anyway," she continued, forcing a breezy tone, "the fair is up and running. Nothing you can do about it. We're just selling goods, not harming anyone. In fact," she added, a glint of avarice in her eyes, "if you want in on the action, I can give you a booth. Sell whatever you like. We can be partners." The sheer audacity of the offer stunned him. Daniel took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. "Karen," he said, his voice dangerously low, "do you have a business license for this event?" Karen, who had been busy rearranging a stack of lipsticks, their tubes suspiciously sticky, froze. She slowly turned to him, her eyes narrowing. She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Look, who are you to ask? Are you a customer? If so, buy something. If not, and I'm asking you nicely, scram, stop asking so many questions. Are you trying to sabotage me? Daniel ignored her question, picking up a jar of Miracle Anti-Aging Cream, its label a masterpiece of grammatical errors and scientific-sounding gibberish. Have these products been inspected? Do they have safety certifications? Karen erupted in a loud, grating laugh. Certifications? Honey, I've been in this business for years. I have more VIP customers than you have hairs on your head. What matters is that they're good and cheap. That's all that matters. She punctuated her statement with another dismissive wave of her hand. But Daniel didn't move. He noticed a subtle shift in the crowd. The initial excitement of a bargain was giving way to a growing unease. A middle-aged woman, clutching a jar of the same cream Daniel was holding, frowned slightly, her expression shifting from curiosity to suspicion. A young man sniffed cautiously at a bottle of perfume, his brow furrowed in concentration. Whispers started circulating. Is this stuff real? I don't know. It seems too good to be true. Daniel saw his opening. He raised his voice, ensuring everyone in the vicinity could hear. No inspection? No certification? So, how can anyone guarantee these products aren't harmful? You might make a quick buck, Karen, but what about people's health? What about the potential consequences? A hush fell over the immediate area. Several customers, their faces now pale with apprehension, began placing items back on the stalls. Karen's face flushed crimson, but she quickly rallied, forcing another burst of laughter, this one tinged with desperation. What are you trying to do, ruin my business? Do you even know who I am? Just then, two figures emerged from the crowd, men built like refrigerators, their arms adorned with an intimidating array of tattoos. They positioned themselves on either side of Karen, their presence a silent but unmistakable threat. This is spiraling, thought one of the men, shifting his weight uneasily. He'd signed up for a simple security gig, not a potential street brawl with some... Who was this guy anyway? Daniel, however, remained unfazed. He met the men's gaze, his own unwavering. A strange calm had settled over him, a sense of professional purpose replacing his initial outrage. Well, he said, his voice steady and clear, what if someone were to find out you're selling counterfeit goods, Karen? Goods that could be dangerous. Karen's laughter this time was brittle, almost hysterical. She leaned forward, jabbing a finger in Daniel's direction. You think you're so smart, huh? You think you can just waltz in here and shut me down? Who do you think you are? Some kind of investigator? Some kind of hero? She shook her head, a mixture of defiance and panic swirling in her eyes. Seriously, kid, go home. You're embarrassing yourself. Daniel, feeling the tension reach a breaking point, knew it was time. He slowly reached into his wallet, his eyes locked on Karen's. The bustling fair seemed to hold its breath, the collective anticipation palpable. He pulled out a sleek, silver-edged card, the light catching the embossed lettering. With a deliberate, almost theatrical flourish, he flipped it between his fingers, making sure Karen and everyone nearby had a clear view. You asked who I am, Karen. He stepped forward, his voice dropping to a low, resonant tone, the voice of authority he rarely used, but one that always commanded attention. Here's your answer. He held the card up, his voice now clear and unwavering, cutting through the lingering hum of the crowd. I am Daniel, the director of the Consumer Protection Bureau. And you, he continued, his gaze locking onto Karen's now stricken face, are in a lot of trouble. The effect of Daniel's declaration was immediate and dramatic. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Karen's carefully constructed facade crumbled, her face draining of color, leaving her makeup looking garish and clownish. The two hulking men beside her exchanged uneasy glances, their bravado evaporating. "You're... what?" Karen stammered, her voice barely a whisper. The microphone, still clutched in her hand, amplified the tremor in her voice. Daniel didn't give her time to recover. His hand was already reaching for his phone. "I'm calling the Market Inspection Unit and the Economic Police," he announced, his voice loud and clear, projecting authority. "There's a serious case of commercial fraud going on here. At Willow Creek." He paused, glancing around at his once pristine yard, my address. The words hung in the air, heavy with consequence. The murmurs in the crowd swelled into a roar of outrage and disbelief. People who had been moments away from purchasing Karen's bargains now recoiled, dropping the items as if they were burning coals. Karen, meanwhile, seemed to shrink before his eyes. Her theatrical posture collapsed, her shoulders slumping. "No, no, no," she muttered, shaking her head frantically. "This can't be happening. This is a misunderstanding." She tried to grab Daniel's arm, a desperate plea in her eyes. "Daniel, please! We're neighbors. We can talk about this." But Daniel was unmoved. He sidestepped her grasp, his gaze cold. "We'll talk at the station, Karen," he said, his voice devoid of any warmth. He spoke into his phone, relaying the details of the situation with crisp efficiency. "Priority response requested. Multiple vendors, potentially hazardous counterfeit goods. Suspect is uncooperative." While Daniel was on the phone, chaos erupted. Customers, realizing they had been duped, began demanding their money back. Some started throwing the fake cosmetics and perfumes onto the ground, shattering bottles and releasing a noxious cloud of chemicals. The two security men, seeing the situation rapidly spiraling out of control, discreetly melted into the crowd, abandoning Karen to her fate. Karen, left alone on her precarious platform, looked like a deposed queen surveying the ruins of her kingdom. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she thought, a wave of despair washing over her. Just a little extra money, that's all I wanted. Brief shift to Karen's internal monologue. Within minutes, the air was filled with the wail of sirens. Police cars and vans screeched to a halt, their flashing lights painting the scene in a dizzying strobe effect. Uniformed officers and plainclothes inspectors poured out, moving with swift, practiced efficiency. The crowd, a mix of angry customers and panicked vendors, parted before them like the Red Sea. An inspector, a stern-faced woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, strode directly towards Karen's stall. She picked up a lipstick, its packaging a blatant imitation of a luxury brand. She donned gloves, expertly peeled back the label, and twisted open the tube. Her face darkened as she examined the contents. "Lead levels, 5 times the legal limit," she announced, her voice amplified by a portable speaker. "This is poison." A collective shudder ran through the crowd. A young woman, who had been clutching a similar lipstick, gasped and dropped it as if it were a live grenade. "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I've been using this for weeks." Another inspector, examining a bottle of perfume, unscrewed the cap and took a cautious sniff. He immediately recoiled, his face contorted in disgust. "Industrial alcohol," he declared. "This could cause serious skin irritation, even blindness." The scene descended into complete pandemonium. Customers, now fully aware of the danger they had been exposed to, surged forward, demanding refunds, shouting accusations and venting their fury at Karen. Karen, cornered and overwhelmed, could only stammer. I didn't know. I'm just a seller. I get it from a supplier." but her pleas were drowned out by the roar of the crowd and the authoritative commands of the officers. Two police officers approached Karen, their expressions grim. One of them took her arm, twisting it behind her back. The click of handcuffs echoed through the air, a stark, final sound. "Karen Miller," the officer intoned, "you're under arrest for selling counterfeit goods, endangering public health, and operating without a license." Karen finally broke. Tears streamed down her face, smearing her elaborate makeup, transforming her into a grotesque caricature of her former self. "No, please, I have a family, I have children," she cried, her voice cracking with desperation. She looked towards Daniel, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "Daniel, help me, you know me, I'm not a bad person." But Daniel remained impassive, watching as the officers led Karen away. The scene, a surreal tableau of flashing lights, angry shouts, and shattered dreams, played out in his once peaceful yard. The irony was not lost on him. The police car carrying Karen, its red and blue lights flashing a fading rhythm against the darkening sky, finally pulled away. The chaotic energy that had consumed his yard began to dissipate, leaving behind a wreckage of shattered bottles, discarded packaging, and trampled flower beds. Market inspectors continued their work, meticulously collecting and cataloging the evidence, their movements precise and efficient. The air, though still thick with the lingering scent of cheap perfume and industrial chemicals, slowly began to clear. Daniel stood amidst the debris, a strange mixture of satisfaction and melancholy washing over him. He'd done his job. He'd protected the public from harmful products and brought a perpetrator to justice. But the cost... He looked at the mangled remains of his rose bushes, his carefully tended garden now a scene of devastation. And then there was Karen. He couldn't deny a pang of, not sympathy exactly, but perhaps a flicker of understanding. He remembered her kindness, her generosity during Sarah's illness. Had desperation driven her to this? Had she truly understood the potential harm she was inflicting? He walked back towards the porch, the familiar creak of the wooden steps a small comfort in the unsettling aftermath. He retrieved his abandoned coffee mug, the ceramic now cold to the touch. He went inside, brewed a fresh pot, and returned to the porch, sinking into his old wooden chair. As he sipped the hot, bitter liquid, his gaze drifted across the scene of the now deserted fair. The flashing lights of the remaining inspection vehicles cast long, dancing shadows, transforming the familiar space into something alien and surreal. He thought about the countless victims of counterfeit goods, the people who suffered allergic reactions, skin damage, or worse, all in pursuit of a bargain. He thought about the larger network behind Karen, the suppliers who profited from this dangerous trade. The fight was far from over. He took another sip of coffee, the warmth spreading through him. A faint smile touched his lips, a flicker of dark humor in the midst of the somber reflection. He imagined Karen sitting in a holding cell, finally realizing the full extent of her predicament. He pictured her trying to explain herself to the authorities, her usual flamboyant excuses falling flat. "Next time, Karen," he murmured, his voice barely audible above the chirping of crickets that had tentatively returned to the yard. "If you're going to host a fair, at least get a permit. And," he added, with a slight shrug and a final sip of his coffee, "definitely don't do it in my yard." The night was far from over, but at last a semblance of peace had returned to Willow Creek. The story of Daniel and Karen serves as a potent reminder of several enduring truths, particularly relevant as we navigate the complexities of modern life. Firstly, it underscores the importance of discernment. In a world flooded with information and enticing offers, we must cultivate a healthy skepticism, questioning the source and authenticity of what we consume, both literally and figuratively. Don't be swayed solely by price or persuasive rhetoric. Prioritize quality, safety, and verifiable credentials. Secondly, the story highlights the enduring value of community and neighborliness. While Karen's actions were reprehensible, the initial trust and goodwill between her and Daniel were genuine. Maintaining strong, positive relationships within our communities provides a safety net and a source of support. Finally, it speaks to the consequences of our choices. Every action, no matter how seemingly small, has repercussions. Let us strive to make choices that are ethical, responsible, and considerate of others, understanding that short-term gains can never justify long-term harm. Cherish integrity. It's a legacy that truly endures.